This is a great point to pause and just get started for the day. How's everyone feeling? I appreciate you all joining the call with us today. I do want to let everyone know that we are recording this session. Just to inform you, if you have questions or concerns about that, please email or send a message in the chat. I'll be happy to answer your questions. But thank you all so much for joining us on your lunch hour to really get some more information related to mental health and COVID-19 and its impact and how you can best support your student. Today we have a very special guest with us. We're really excited that she has joined us. I'll introduce her in a second, but I just want to go over just a few things as we do with every Mavi Central's Live e-series session, just talking about the purpose of why we do this every day, every other week. This program was put into place so that it serves as a supplemental educational workshop for parents and family members as an extended orientation for you all, or even a refresher orientation for many of our upperclassmen families that come through this session, just to help you understand the resources available to your student. If they ever have questions or concerns, you are able to assist them. You're in a position to share with them the knowledge that you gained through these sessions and through the support of the UTA Parent and Family Center. So we've been doing these Mavi Central Live sessions since August. My goodness, it's gone by so fast. It seems like just yesterday we had our very first session, and now we are on session 7, almost wrapping up the series. But we've been doing this since August and had some really, really great presenters come through and share important information with families, and today is no different. We will wrap up our season in November, second week in November. We hope that you join us for the remainder of these sessions because we really feel like there's a lot to be gained from attending. What we hope that every single participant gets from these sessions is an ability to identify all the resources available to your student, all the departments that are associated with your student or the touch points that your student may encounter. We also hope that you're able to explain the information that you gain from these sessions to your family members and definitely to your students. Of course, we want you to be able to provide support for your students' academic and personal success and be able to address any concerns that they may have. And then, of course, we want you to feel and find that this is a valuable benefit and service to you all that's being offered through our office. So these are things we hope that you gain from each of these sessions. And there will be some in-event surveys that we'll do in order to help assess how well we're doing. At the end of the session, we will have a few questions that we'll ask you, and we're just going to ask that you give us a thumbs up or a happy face or a sad face, and let us know, how well we're doing with the session. And then at the end of the entire series, we will be sending out a series survey or an evaluation of the program, and we really would appreciate you giving us your feedback, okay? We do have some housekeeping rules. We are all family here. We want to make sure that we're creating an environment where everyone feels comfortable sharing their questions and concerns among our guests and among you all as parents and family members. The best way to learn is to ask questions and learn in an environment where everyone may be going through the same experiences that you are going through. So there are no questions that should be left unsaid. Please share them with us and we'll do our best to get them answered and addressed. Speaking of getting them answered and addressed, myself and our student liaison, Quinny, will be in the chat feature today, helping to answer any questions that you may have. We also may pose some of those questions to the group so that our speaker can address them if they are directed to her. And so please make sure that you get that information in the chat feature. And then we also will do a family photo at the end. We want to commemorate this experience with you all. We want to make sure that you are on record here at noon with us for this session. So Make sure you get your smiles ready, put your lipstick on, powder your faces so that you can take a quick photo with us. And then just remember to monitor your microphone and keep your microphones on mute if you are not speaking. Okay? Well, I mean, I've said enough. It's time for us to delve into this session. I would really like for you all to meet someone that has been very helpful to our department, to students all across our campus. She's very well versed in her specialty. Please help me welcome Cynthia Manzano. She is the counseling specialist at the Counseling and Psychological Services Department. Please help me welcome her. Cindy, you ready?
I am, Tasha. Thank you so much. Thank you again to everyone that is taking time out to be here today. I recognize, always that you can choose to be in many other spaces, virtually and non-virtually. So I appreciate you all taking the time to be here. And while I get my screen all set up, I think what generally is helpful for me is to be able to begin by asking what you all are wanting to gain from today's presentation. First off, can you see my presentation? I should just ask, and I can't see the chat, so I would need like a verbal yes.
I can see it.
Excellent. Okay. So as the fact that I just started my screen share, I cannot see anyone or see the chat. It's just a function of the screen share right now. I hope that you can see me, but I think what would be helpful for me is to get to know what is bringing you here today, right? So again, like I said, you can be anywhere else right now, but you're choosing to carve out the time to, and I do appreciate that. So with that being recognized and acknowledged, I want to see, well, what are you wanting to get out of being here today? How will I know that I've done my job in making this time the best use of your time? So what are you wanting to get out of being here today? What would be helpful? Will help me to kind of stress some points of this presentation and maybe even add some points to this presentation. So I'm going to welcome people to either unmute themselves or use the chat, and then Tasha or I think it was Annie, if you don't mind letting me know if there's anything in the chat.
Do.
Somebody said,
go ahead, Annie, go ahead.
Oh yeah, somebody just wanted to know what services are available for their daughter.
Yep, that's a great thing. You're in the right place. Okay, we'll cover that. Anything else?
I believe that is all that was in the chat.
Okay. Well, I'm going to welcome people to please feel free to be as interactive as you feel comfortable at this time, including unmuting yourselves. I know there's all these ways that we need to be aware of virtual etiquette, but please feel free to unmute yourselves and do what you need to do to be able to be acknowledged and interact. And if you do have any questions, please let me know. I am getting some noise in the background. I don't know if someone might need to mute themselves, just FYI. Okay, and again, just to reiterate, my name is Dr. Cindy Manzano, and I am one of the counselors in Counseling and Psychological Services, and I'm really happy to be here with you all today. And so today we're going to be going over COVID-19 and its impacts on students, and perhaps ways that you as guests, parents, and family members might be able to support your students. So this is a brief agenda of what we're going to be going over today. I think at this point, we all are inundated with so much COVID-19 information. So I'm not going to harp on this area very much at all, but just to really, again, acknowledge the fact that this is a global pandemic that has been impacting us since, the month of March, really. And here we are at the end of October, almost November. We know that it has, impacted millions of people in our country, and it can be easily spread from person to person. And the risk of infection, we know, can be more severe for some people in particular conditions with medical conditions, previous existing medical conditions, or older adults. And we also know, of course, that in order to help prevent the spread, the CDC and the WHO recommends these sorts of things. Everyone knows, I think by now, the 6 feet away. I think we're always going to think about these times whenever we hear 6 feet going forward. Staying home whenever you can, wearing your mask, and being able to, cleanse and wash and disinfect. And then again, we were all just living our normal lives, right? We kind of think about our lives and maybe the way that things operated pre and now post pandemic, as if it's like a completely different and new chapter that we've started since March. Very abruptly, things changed for many of us, and these are just a few of the ways. And we know that environmentally things have changed, economic and financial, especially, not only personal economic or financial, but also globally and nationally, politically for sure. And then on an individual level, we know emotionally people are being impacted. We're getting more and more data about that as the days go on. Health and physical aspects for sure, as this is a pandemic and impacting our health. Our spiritual lives, many people that are more religious in practice, maybe by going to places of worship, have certainly been impacted. And then social and relational aspects, as well as we know with students, are their academic and work. So generally speaking, we also know that humans are wired for social connection. It's just in our DNA. If you all can remember when you brought home your kids, assuming that you all, have kids here at UTA, or at least maybe interacted with them if they're friends or family members. When you brought them home, if you put your pinky out, they would grab it, right? There is this natural human reaction we have, even from birth, to respond to human contact, warmth, touch, soothing vocalizations. We are hardwired for human contact. And so with the advent of the pandemic and all of these guidelines going into place for needing to distance more, for needing to stay home more, it has really, I think, been a challenge for a lot of people about how we continue to feel connected when we're needing to take care of ourselves. And so we know that loneliness has been a concern during these times. And just to, give a little bit of, I think some information about loneliness. Loneliness is really a feeling that someone has. It doesn't necessarily mean that because you're alone that you automatically are lonely. You can probably imagine many circumstances when you've experienced being alone, maybe in the house or something like that, but not necessarily feeling lonely, right? So there is that difference between being alone and being lonely. But with COVID-19 and more of the practices going into place with social distancing, we know that many people across all age groups are reporting an increase in loneliness. And really that comes from that perceived gap and that conflict between wanting that connection and feeling like they're not able to experience it. And so we know also that social isolation and loneliness can lead to increases in mental health distress. Some of these reports, I must tell you, are a little outdated because of the fact that we created this earlier on in the pandemic. So just bear with me. But being able to acknowledge that certainly even earlier on in the pandemic, they were some of the reports going on, such as with SAMHSA, which is one of the big mental health organizations, was reporting about 1,000% increase in their hotline, their emergency hotlines, for people expressing emotional distress, people texting, and then the Kaiser Family Foundation also saying that nearly half of Americans reporting crisis, the crisis impacting their mental health. So again, some of the most common ways that people are being impacted are related to what are the most common mental health concerns already pre-pandemic. We know that students, but also all adults and people here in the U.S. at least, the most significant mental health issues are related to depression, anxiety, substance use, and sleep. So you can imagine if people were already struggling with those issues pre-pandemic, then those issues only are serving to perhaps become even more challenged and potentially could become more significant for people. And then for people that weren't necessarily dealing with these issues pre-pandemic, we are seeing people with newer concerns related to these issues. A lot of times with students, I can say that I've seen post-pandemic, a lot of the anxiety, depression, and the sleep have been related to this online way of living. Suddenly the classes are online and I'm needing to manage my time. And therefore, that's a lot harder to deal with and to manage and be responsible for. People or students are, sleeping at all hours of the night or day, sometimes, becoming nocturnal. And then we know that sleep is foundational to the rest of our mental health. So if we're getting poor sleep, it can impact our ability to function, including leading to things such as anxiety and depression. So I want to pause right there and just see if anyone has any questions thus far, any chats or anything.
There's been a lot of conversation in the chat, Cindy, about ways that students can not feel so disconnected and get connected. There was some conversation about volleyball courts and things of that nature that have been taken away from students that kind of helps foster them having an outlet. I know that this may be something later on, but that is kind of some of the topics that are coming about right now.
Yeah, and very, very much so aware of, needing to get to, well, what do we do? Because we acknowledge that this is going on. So yeah, I'm glad that there's already some chat about that. And I certainly welcome people to share tips and other things. We will be getting to, well, what now? We know that this is going on. What do we do? But I do think it's worthwhile just to reflect just for a moment about some of these signs and symptoms of both anxiety and depression. The reason being is because oftentimes as parents, family members, loved ones of people in our lives, and it could be students at UTA, it could be yourself, or it could be others that you have interactions with. We may not notice some of these signs until we really kind of acknowledge and read through them and begin to see that maybe there is something going on. In terms of symptoms of depression, we know, and this is from a more clinical diagnostic view for what it's worth. Basically, in order to be diagnosed with a depressive disorder, someone would need to experience these signs and symptoms for about 2 weeks at minimum, and have these symptoms for more often than not. So basically, we all experience sadness, and we all experience changes in our appetite or our sleep. So really, it's about being able to see, is this happening more often than not? for at least 2 weeks. And if this is more of your state of being on a day-to-day basis, rather than just a fluctuation with either days or particular experiences that are impacting our mood. So sadness and depression, loss of interest or pleasure activities, things that we know that we used to be interested in, but just don't bring us that joy. Changes in appetite, changes in sleep, energy and fatigue loss, slowed movements and speech, and that goes along with the body and mind connection. When we are depressed emotionally, our physicalities, our gait is also depressed. So we'll notice that things automatically will begin to slow down. Feelings of worthlessness and guilt, difficulty with motivation and concentration and thinking, and then thoughts of suicide as well. In terms of symptoms of anxiety, we know that, again, very similar to depression, we would need some of these symptoms to be experienced on a regular, ongoing basis, right? So we all, for sure, as a result of the pandemic, have experienced worries, irritability, perhaps some difficulty concentrating. So all of these, I'd want to normalize and say, you know what, we all as human beings will experience these, but it's the way, the frequency, and how it's impacting our day-to-day lives that really is key. And so we know, again, for a more diagnostic view of anxiety, it needs to be more excessive, leading to feelings of restlessness, being keyed up, easily being fatigued as well, difficulty concentrating, muscle tension, irritability, and sleep disturbance. You might notice that there's a lot of commonalities between symptoms of anxiety and depression. And we do often find that, students as well as, the general public have both the depression and anxiety as well. So now we're going to finally get to, okay, well, what now? We know that this has impacted students. We know that it's probably impacting ourselves, our loved ones. What can we do? So we're going to more specifically talk about students, but I want to allow you to, have a perspective of maybe taking a look at people around you as well as yourselves, and taking care of yourself. So specific to UTA first, we know that there's still many things to get involved in and to take a look at. So staying informed via, and these are a lot of websites, that students, hopefully are aware of, and if not, can take advantage of. Staying informed through social media pages and other UTA departments. Keeping active. I know, for example, I have one student that pre-pandemic really enjoyed going to the MAC and swimming. And luckily, they've been able to continue going to the MAC and swimming. I think they may have to, navigate times and other things, but the MAC is our exercise facility, and it is open at this time. Group classes might primarily be online, but certainly encouraging your students, if they have access and if they are on campus, to, partake in things on campus that are still to their level of comfort. There's still student organizations to be involved with. I personally am an advisor to our CAPS Ambassador program. So we still meet virtually once a week, and they're still very much involved in outreach initiatives, including recording of podcasts every couple of weeks together. They do lots of different social media outreach. They do presentations. They do self-care events. So knowing that just because we're operating in a virtual way does not mean that they cannot get involved and reach out. Student connections, we know there's mentorship programs, and then lots of different ways that they can take a look at events on campus, including the student affairs events calendar, Excel activities, and the general UTA events calendar. Those are some links there, again, just to be aware of. I'm going to pause and see if anyone has questions. Okay, seems like maybe not, but please interrupt me if there is anything on the chat or if anyone does have questions. And then thinking about ways that you can come together. And this is really about what we talked about previously about our natural human need for connection. And just because we might be alone or somewhat alone from time to time does not necessarily have to mean that we feel lonely. I think it means that we must then be a little bit more motivated and perhaps take more initiative on our part to be able to be more self-aware of how we're feeling and then what we can do about that in that moment. So if we're more self-aware and if we can acknowledge, okay, I'm beginning to feel a bit lonely, what can I do? How can I intervene at that time? And then here's some things, that again, many of these might not be new to you all, but being able to really recognize that these are options and certainly not an exhaustive list as well. So acknowledging that we still have virtual formats to do videos and calls. Students certainly, have the ability to partake in study groups or book clubs. I know of students that I've seen who said that they've been able to connect even more, interestingly enough, because their classes are smaller. So they feel even more connected versus larger classes that they were in before. Granted, this student, had some social anxiety in the past, so I think that's helpful in a smaller group format, but just being able to see what are the opportunities that may exist outside the usual in-person way that students might consider connecting. And then ways to, again, I always stress whatever you're most comfortable with, but I would encourage, going outside. I know it's kind of chilly out right now, but going for walks, getting exercise, meeting up with others with masks as socially distanced as comfortable, always getting in touch with your support system, family, friends, whoever that might be, and continuing to celebrate, occasions, events that are important to people in your life. And then other things that are really important is to continue to educate yourself with updated information, but also monitoring that with not bombarding yourself with too much. And I would say that in terms of not only COVID, but just in general with people's consumption of the news, it can be overwhelming. And being able, again, to think about your level of self-awareness and if that's going to be helpful for you to consume so much. So I oftentimes tell students, think about having a time that you consume news, and that could be COVID related or other, related, and then leaving that to the side for the rest of the day. Maintaining routines. I think that in talking to students, this is so key. When the pandemic first, switched everything up in the spring, I think the most significant thing that students were telling me and really struggling with was keeping on a routine, a regular sort of wake time. I do my classes, I, care for my needs, I cook, I clean, whatever it might be. I take care of myself, I exercise, and then, I go to bed. It was so hard for them to do that when they're kind of more isolated and living in their own bubble. So I think routines are super, super important for us to be able to maintain some sort of normalcy and to be able to, have something to help guide us day to day. Keeping hygiene in mind, nutrition for sure, being active as much as possible, connecting, like we said, and then keeping a schedule. And then thinking about yourself, we often ask students to think about how you can find some humor, reflecting on what can be important to them and how they connect with value. So for example, many times students, might say it's really important. I value friendship, but if they're talking about then, not having seen friends or talked to friends in a couple of weeks, there's a disconnect there. And of course they begin to feel lonely, right? If their value is, friendship, and then they're feeling disconnected from that. So I think in our discussions I would have with students is, well, what are you going to do? What are the steps that you need to take in order to connect more with your friends? Again, it's going to be unique to everybody in terms of what their values are. And again, it could go back to things like spirituality. Say, someone was really connected to their church and they're not being able to attend as much. Well, what other ways can you connect with your spirituality? If you have creativity that is helpful, being able to express them in journaling or drawing, that's always great. Time with nature. We know from research that the more and more we get outside, the better, emotionally speaking, it is for us. There's ways that our brains are activated when we're in nature that just aren't activated when we're in the confines of walls and fluorescent lights. Our bodies need vitamin D from the sun, and also just natural fresh air from trees and other things. So being able to take some time and go outside, I can't stress that enough. Finding gratitude. Again, there's a lot of research out there about the benefits of gratitude, and the more and more that we can connect with not necessarily all the stuff that's going wrong in our lives, that's certainly well acknowledged, I think, for many of us. But if we can sit with and acknowledge, what am I thankful for in this moment? And it's not just putting a positive spin, and it's not just I'm going to, put rose-colored glasses on this experience. It's being able to see that I do have these concerns, and I am going through a difficult time and a stressful time. And alongside that experience, I can still be open to finding moments of connecting with what I'm thankful for. So it doesn't have to be an either or sort of situation. They can walk alongside together. Writing a journal, like I said, it can go back to number 3 with creativity. Some people have a green thumb. I myself don't, but I love to watch plants grow and then sometimes die on me. So I don't love watching them die on me, but it just sometimes happens. Exercise, like I said, we know endorphins are released. So important to have that as part of your regular routine. If not daily, then just a regular weekly routine. Meditation as well. CAPS offers a lot of meditation resources, but there's tons out there for the general public as well, whether it be on Spotify or YouTube or other apps related to stress relief and meditation exercises. And we know that meditation also has a lot of research to back up its benefits in terms of just general overall well-being and life satisfaction. And then finally, being compassionate. I think a lot of times we can be very hard on ourselves and with others around us. And the more and more we can offer ourselves and encourage others, so you having your students here at UTA, offering them compassion, encouraging them to be compassionate towards themselves if they're going through a hard time, that's going to be really important as well. I'll pause there because I know I just said a lot. Any questions?
Somebody had a question. They asked, they wanted to know, like how to talk to another student who is responsible with their social behavior and putting roommates at risk.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And I actually have had quite a few conversations with students about this very same thing. They feel like there's a disconnect between the way that they're seeing their responsibility at this time in caring for themselves and others, trying to be as healthy as possible and safe as possible. And then they may live with someone that seems to have just a little bit less of a care about that in terms of their behaviors, perhaps not wearing masks or perhaps actively going out into large crowds or groups. I think that this is a very, very challenging time for sure, and one that doesn't come without its difficult conversations. You know, there's a few ways that certainly I would encourage students to think about this. One, obviously having a conversation with their roommate to see what can potentially be worked out between the two of them. UTA also, I can't say that I am aware at this moment of whether it's still active, but UTA used to have mediation support. So basically between two roommates that are having difficulty, you know, coming to an agreement about things, they would have someone support that conversation and mediate. So you know, Tasha, or, you know, I think if you can maybe take a look to see if UTA still has mediation, or I can try to do that at the end. Maybe trying to see if there's some way to get a third party involved. And then last but not least, you know, a student can always try to talk to the dean of students or someone else if it's really gotten to a point where it's unmanageable and perhaps other options need to be explored in terms of housing, if it really is potentially like a high risk situation as well.
We can look into it, Cynthia.
Yeah. Okay.
Cindy, and I'll put it in the chat if we get it before the end.
Okay.
And
don't
get it before the end, we'll try to send it out in the Maverick Family Communication Portal. Any questions that we aren't able to get to, we'll throw it in the portal as an announcement. Okay.
Excellent. And knowing that time alone can be helpful as well. Sometimes, you know, students and, you know, humans in general can, again, connect being alone with always being lonely. But acknowledging that being alone can oftentimes be quite healthy for us, and that it helps us to unwind. It helps us to allow for time for self-discovery and to be more self-aware. Oftentimes when we, I think, busy ourselves with a lot of other things and a lot of, you know, just things to do, we're outside, we're going, those can be helpful for sure, parts of our lives, but allowing some downtime can help to reboot our brains, which is connected to mindfulness. So mindfulness is really an aspect of being more present, being more focused in this moment versus past or future. We know that a lot of times people that experience issues related to depression are more past focused and having past regrets, past experiences, past images, or memories that continue to replay and lead to that feeling of depression. Or people that are anxious tend to be very future focused and want to control and have a lot of difficulty in the lack of ability to control the future. So constantly kind of navigating that. So what mindfulness really does is tries to be more self-aware of when our minds are producing some of that either past or future-oriented commentary, and to allow ourselves to open up to our present moment experience. So like I said, CAPS has a lot of different mindfulness programs. I would encourage you to let your students be aware of. I lead a 4-week mindfulness class called Koru, that's evidence-based. But I also lead mindfulness meditations twice a week as well. So being able to just, you know, see that there's different resources for your students as well. And then finally, going to just general resources and support, knowing that not only some of the resources that I mentioned earlier on that UTA has can be of support to your students, but certainly CAPS as a whole, we're here to support your students. And it could be related to therapy if they're interested and if they are at that point that they are wanting to engage in therapy. But honestly, CAPS offers a lot of services that are not necessarily therapy involved. So it could include things like I said, our meditations. They can just drop in, and we have Zoom links for students to just click on. They don't even have to register. And here I am helping to lead a meditation. There's workshops that we offer similar to this, but on specific topics like how to be more self-compassionate, or how to get through anxious times with school, or how to combat loneliness. So we have lots of different workshops, drop-in meetings that they can just access. Again, there's no commitment, no therapy involved. So asking them to see if they'd be willing to take a look at just getting some information and some support in that way if they're not ready for counseling. We also have something called Therapy Assistance Online, which is a complete self-guided library of therapy resources. They would do it on their own, and it's completely free of charge. They would get that information through our website. There's also a Thrive app that's really, really helpful. It has 8 different modules related to general well-being, such as gratitude, self-compassion, mindfulness, and students can, again, be self-guided with some of those tips. And then last but not least, acknowledging that if students are in crisis, there's a 24-hour crisis line, always a counselor they can speak to when they need, and then health services during this time as well. So I'm going to go ahead and end my share if I can. Let me see if I can. And then allow some time for questions or anything that might be coming up for anyone.
My name is Rosalind Davis. My daughter is a freshman student there. I was wondering, is it any way possible that not just her, any students can have a face-to-face meeting with the instructor if they have questions about a class? Because this is, like you said, is new for everyone doing the online, and she's normally an A student, but she's struggling in 3 of her classes. And we don't want her to lose her scholarship.
Yeah, that's a really great question, and more on the academic side. I'm not 100% sure, but I would say if a student came to me with that question, I would absolutely ask them to try to get in touch directly with their professors and ask for a meeting. You know, most professors would need to have some sort of office hours when it's in person. And so I would imagine that professors are offering some sort of Zoom or Teams office hours. You know, again, I can't speak to this. Liz, okay, yeah. So they might be able to meet via Teams. Our Liz Richter has noted. So I would encourage you to ask your student, if they haven't already, to ask the professor about that.
I believe that would be the best resource. It would be a great opportunity for you as a parent and family member to help coach them through that conversation with their professor if they are nervous about getting in contact with them, or if they've never contacted a professor before in this setting. Just kind of walk through what that conversation may be like, and even role play with them, how they can get their point across to the professor. But honestly, I think everyone understands, you know, the magnitude of this situation, including their professors, and I really hope that they feel comfortable enough to just ask the questions or share their concerns and see if there's a way that they can work out a plan. And then certainly take advantage of all of the support resources that are available within their major. They could just kind of do a quick scour of their majors or their college's support resources and go from there. And if all else fails, they certainly can go and visit someone or contact the Division of Student Success, and they will certainly direct them to the appropriate person. Liz Richter also said to review their course syllabus as well.
And Liz also offered up her email, so you can see it there in the chat.
Are there any other questions?
Hey, Ms. Asha, this is Pedro. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Trying to get out this other meeting at the same time. I sort of had the same scenario with my child, my first year, my son, who's there at UTA. With one specific class, he needed basically additional time with the instructor just because of the material that he was covering. So asked him to do that same thing, just connect with the professor, and or maybe they have tutoring sessions or something like that in reference to what he had questions on. Um, and not only that, but I also had him, for the material that he was covering, had him, everything's on YouTube and everything's on other university sites as well. So he actually got a couple other resources for that specific material that he needed to cover. Without me getting into his business, right? They're adults now, so we can't do that. But I sure can guide them. So, but yeah, I'm glad the question came up as well. I was going to ask it too.
There was a question earlier on about what resources do students have if they want to talk to someone on campus about how they feel. That came from Miss Lisa. Miss Lisa, did we answer your question? I know that Cindy, I keep looking at your name on the screen, but what I call you is Cindy. Cindy had a slide up about all of the resources that are available within their office and others. Did that answer your question about who students can talk to on campus if they're feeling anxious, concerned, worried, isolated?
And for what it's worth, I'll add that we have a program, and I'm going to put it in the chat, the link to it. We have something called Let's Talk as well, which is a supportive consultation is the easiest way to put it. So some students may just want like kind of a one-time consultation with a counselor to get some feedback, to get some support, and maybe they're not wanting therapy, but they're interested in that feedback. So they can set up a Let's Talk consultation with a counselor, and anytime that works for them. So I'll add that link.
Anyone else have any questions before we move forward? Okay. I think we've tried our best. I'll go back through, once we end the call, I'll go back through and see if there was anything that we did not get a chance to answer. I know that we haven't put in the chat yet about mediation within housing and residence life. We'll get some information for you all and send it through the portal to you all if we have any other further questions or concerns. One last chance. Seems like we have a really active chat feature going on. One last chance before we move on toward ending the call.
I had another question regarding instruction. I know that most of it, or practically all of it, is online. Do you know if any of the instructors are actually going to the location where class would have been held and just there doing the class on Zoom? So if a child wanted to just go and sit in the very back to just have a visual and be able to raise their hand and ask a question there on the spot with their laptop, is it possible?
Liz, are you aware of any scenarios like that? I wouldn't imagine that there is a scenario like that would have to be scheduled in advance and the modality selected or chosen by the student.
Can she repeat that question again? I'm sorry, I was in the chat answering, just putting a note in there.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question again?
She was asking if there was ever a time where a student could just kind of go to the class and sit in the class if the teacher or if the professor came on campus and taught the class on campus.
Like a different section of the same course is being taught face to face, but the student is in an online section. Is that what you're asking? You would probably, the student probably would need to reach out to the instructor and ask. I would be happy to try to facilitate some conversations with departments and getting hold of faculty if we seem to be having some real issues here, it sounds like today. And so with the students and contacting faculty and you know, remembering too that this is new environment for our faculty, and their email is quite full and responding the best that they can. But we can help facilitate some of that. I can contact some senior leadership and remind and then ask that they remind that faculty be monitoring email and responding to students in a timely manner. And we also have some student success advocates on our campus that students can email and ask for any assistance. The Division of Student Success has an email that gets it's monitored every single day for these types of issues, and we try to respond within 24 hours to the student's needs and trying to connect student to faculty. And that email is studentsuccess@uta.edu. So please feel free to pass that email address on to your students and ask that they use that, and be very specific with providing their student ID number, also providing the course, the section, who the professor is, so we can really help make these connections.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Sure, happy to help.
Well, I want to thank Cindy Manzano and Liz Richter and everyone that was assisting in the chat feature today. I really appreciate all of your questions and your concerns. Yeah, this is unprecedented times, and we're, as Liz said, that, you know, we're all kind of trying to figure out the best way to provide the best services for our students to help them be as successful as possible. Want to make sure that students know all about the resources, hence the reason why we're having these Mav Essential Live e-series sessions, so that everyone that's involved in their lives is just as informed as they are, so that you can pass on the information that's necessary when it's necessary. So thank you so much, Cindy, for your time. If you don't mind staying on just for a few moments while we wrap up. I do want to share with everyone that I'm going to skip over a couple of these slides so that I can get to the meat of the presentation. Just some reminders. If you have a membership within the Parent and Family Association, it is testing season coming up. So midterms will be wrapping up or even starting. We also will be going into finals soon. So just please ensure that you share with your student that they can pick up testing materials from our office if they are on campus. From the Vice President of Student Affairs office, we are still working remotely within our department. And so they can pick it up in Suite 180D, Mondays through Friday, 1 to 4. I'm sorry, testing material is Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. At the Vice President of Student Affairs office in Suite 180D. Also, we have a couple upcoming programs and events that are happening. This coming Thursday, we have an event called Testing Your Trusted Advisor Skills, Knowing When to Panic and Knowing When to Praise Parent Panel. That is on Thursday at 6 p.m. We also will be having our Maverick Family Appreciation Day on Friday, the 30th, from 4:30 to 6. We will also be announcing at that event our scholarship recipients for the fall semester. You want to make sure that you're there with your student. And then upcoming, we have our last two sessions. Session 9 is the Road to Student Success with Off-Campus Mavericks, and also Session 10 is just like an end of semester wrap up, just talking about your students transitioning back home for winter break, what to expect, finals, exam support, things of that nature. Also, if you have a graduating senior, we will be participating in commencement activities for graduating seniors and their families. We will have a post-toast graduation celebration that our office will be hosting. That will be on December 17th. And then, of course, Parent and Family Weekend has been postponed till the spring. Dates have not been released yet, but we are working behind the scenes to make sure that it is a valuable and memorable experience for you and your family. Here's some information about the Maverick Family Appreciation Day. We do have a brief schedule. We will have some information to share with you about what's coming up in the spring semester, some focus groups that we want to put together for this semester, and things of that nature that we want to talk to you about in our Maverick Parent Family Association business meeting. And then we also have partnered with Creation for a family fitness class. That is on November 5th, 6 to 7. You all can come and work out together as a family and increase your family bonding and Maverick experience. And so my question to all of you, I'm just going to get out of that screen and post it up here while we have a couple minutes left. Are there any questions about what I shared with you all earlier before we move on to our questions, our survey questions? Okay. Well, here's your first question. In the chat feature, I put a question in there. If you can write, put a thumbs up, a happy face, or a sad face or mad face if it wasn't helpful at all. The question is, did you find this session to be helpful for you today? Thumbs up, happy face, or sad face. Just put the emoji if you have that sentiment. Perfect. Thank you. If you don't see the question is, did you find this session to be helpful today? Yes or no? Happy face, sad face, emojis, whatever you would like to add. All right, here's your second question. Your second question is, will you be sharing this information with your student? Yes, I hope so. That's the whole point. I really hope so. Perfect. All right. Well, we will make sure that we put some information and resources in the portal for you all to digest and share with your students as it relates to the topic that we shared today. Do know that all of these sessions that we have are recorded, and you can feel free to go back and review the session. Just give us a day or so to get it downloaded and uploaded onto our YouTube page. For the UTA Parent and Family Center, we do have a Mav Essentials Live playlist where you can go and look at all of the sessions that we've had thus far, including this one. It should be up by Thursday. And then the next one should be up from Thursday session by Monday. So give us a couple days to get that downloaded and cleaned up and put online, and we'll be sure to send out a notice to everyone about it being up there. Okay, I so appreciate all of you all for attending. These were really great questions. I understand your worry and concern, and we hope that we are providing a great service for you to gather information so that you are able to share it with your students and other family members that may be experiencing this very same concern for their students. And do know that there are a number of folks out there that are willing to help your students. We want to just make sure that we're empowering them to take advantage of the resources that are available to them. Talk to their professors, go to the Student Success Office, and visit for sure if they would like. They can always contact our office, and we'll do our best to research what their questions are and direct them to the appropriate departments. We're here for you and your family. Please be sure to give us a call. Our number is 817-272. Here it is. Our number is 817 272-2128. That's our contact information. Please give us a call on the Maverick Family Warm line. We don't claim to know it all, but we do claim to know a lot of people on campus, and we try our best to find and address all the questions and concerns that you may have. Please be sure to do that. And before we end the call, I do want to let all of you know that the university president, Dr. Teek Lim, will be hosting a State of the University address tomorrow on Facebook Live. We will be posting information about that Facebook Live session in the portal this afternoon with contact information. It's the UTA main Facebook Live page. And I believe, someone help me here, I think it's at 6 p.m. I had it up at I'm sorry. Yeah, I believe it's at 6 p.m. tomorrow. I had it up and I just messed it up. If there's someone that has the appropriate time, throw it in the chat, and we'll go from there. But my computer's not coming up again so that I can give you the right time. But yes, please check out the university address by our university president. I'm sure that he has great information to share with the campus community about all things related to COVID and what the university's direction that they are intending to create. So I hope that you all can attend the Facebook Live tomorrow. All right. If there are no other questions or concerns, again, my name is Tasha Talton. I am the interim director of the UTA Parent and Family Center. Please don't be a stranger. Please give our office a call and we'll be sure to help. Thanks and have a wonderful day.